All right, let's go out to Denver, Colorado, and talk to the great Diane. What's up, Diane?
Hey, John Delony, how are you?
I'm so good. How about you?
Good.
What's up?
So I have got a kind of moral, ethical dilemma going on in my personal life. And I have a son-in-law and daughter who listen frequently. And he said, you know who you need to ask is Dr. John Delony. So
here we are, huh?
Here we are. And
I'm not a very moral or ethical person, so just so you know.
Well, I have listened to you enough to know that is not true. So I'm gonna kind of lay it all out there. It's a kind of a long story. I'm gonna make it as brief as I can because
go for it.
It's been a long few years.
Go for it.
5 years ago, first of all, I'm 49 years old. I'm married for 30 years to just the most amazing man. We have 8 incredible kids. And 5 years ago, we took the kids up to the mountains about 3 hours away from home, went mountain biking, and he crashed his bike, very, very severely suffered a traumatic brain injury that almost killed him. We spent 2 months in local hospitals, 5 brain surgeries, had half of his skull removed, coma, everything, just horrible couple of months. He regained consciousness enough that they accepted him to a rehab hospital 8 hours away. They said for 2 months, we'll do rehab and do the best that we can. So I packed up, left my kids with family members, and I went to this rehab hospital for 2 months. And that 2-month stay, due to a very serious stroke and seizures, turned into a 7-month stay. And we finally got to go home. He came home with a trach in, a feeding tube in his stomach. I had to learn how to put a catheter in. I learned how to take care of him so we could bring him home. I had so much faith, John, the whole time he would be healed. I knew it. And I'm a religious person, and we had so much faith, and we worked so hard. I knew he would get better, at least better enough that we could carry on a conversation with him. He would be somewhat himself. And over the next 2 years of having him at home, it was a lot of work. And he just never really got better. He did learn to walk again. We taught him to walk. But ultimately his injuries he lost hearing. He's completely deaf. And he has no short-term memory. So we can't even teach him sign language because he can't learn new things. He knows my kids. He knows anything that happened 10 years ago or more, but anything that's happened about 2 years before the accident and anything current, he has no idea. He doesn't remember. He's had 3 kids get married. He has grandkids. I have an 8-year-old. He was kind of our surprise baby, and he knows that he has an 8-year-old, but doesn't really know him. He forgets their names sometimes. He has no concept of space or time or age or distance. All of that part of his brain was damaged. And 2 years ago, I decided, for the sake of my kids' lives moving on and mine, that I needed to put him into a facility. So he's in an assisted living facility just a few miles from home. We go see him all the time. A couple months after we put him in that facility, we made some medical decisions, decided it was time to let him go. And we put him on hospice and thought the time would come that he would pass. And it's been almost 2 years. And despite all medical odds, science, everything, he's still with us. Pretty much no quality of life. We've prepared ourselves to let him go so many times when it looked like everything was heading that direction. And he's still with us. And it's just been so hard to know how to move on. Through this process, I got my master's degree. I went back to school. I've become an LCPC, so I'm able to work now and provide for my family.
Awesome.
So my question is, sorry that took so long, but here's my question.
Hold on. Before you ask your question.
Okay.
Can I just sit with you in that for a minute?
Yeah.
That's so much.
It's a lot, and that is just the tip of the iceberg.
I know.
This could be a whole Hollywood movie that would last 10 hours. So
my oldest best friend on planet Earth is a traumatic brain survivor. And when I'm with him now and we go out, I still have to help him go to the bathroom. Still have to have people take care of him and help him. And I can't imagine going up 100x that with building a life with somebody, because it changes everything, right?
Oh man,
Changes the way you breathe.
Yep.
And my guess is, as a mom of 8, you've been solving and fixing for 5 years.
Yeah, I have been.
And then you went and got a freaking master's degree. Like at some point.
I know.
Have you exhaled?
After about year 1, I did, and I still had so much hope and so much faith, and we would work with him every day, work on walking, work on brain stuff. Like, don't let him just sit in front of the TV. Like, we got to work with him. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And then after about year 3, I just really had to shift my thinking that this isn't going to turn out how I thought it would. So we've come to peace with it. In fact, we came to so much peace with him passing. That is what we've been praying for the last 2 years, that it would be better for him. I mean, you talk about your friend and how that is with him. My husband is the same way. He would be humiliated to see what he has become. This is not what he would want. This is not the kind of life. I mean, if he had his right sense, he would say, why didn't you just let me go 3 years ago? Why did you keep me alive? And I listened to your last caller, and it breaks my heart, the loss that she feels. And do you know what I'm thinking is, why can't I be one of the people whose husbands get to pass? I'm in the position where I'm jealous of women whose husbands just get to go peacefully and don't have to live through this pain and agony that my family lives through every day.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, sorry. Because you're right.
Been hard.
You're right. Hold on, you don't have to make me feel better. You do that too much to everybody around you. When you finally get a glimpse, they finally get a little peek behind the curtain, and they realize how much you're hurting. You have become so accustomed to making sure everybody around you feels okay. And at least for these few minutes, that's not your job with me. I get to be sad that in the effort to save somebody's life, yet again, we got so sophisticated with our medical care that we have put families in these positions. And I'm sorry. So what's your dilemma question?
Okay. So I recently, one of my husband's old friends that I didn't know before we knew each other reached out. I had a Caring Bridge account, Facebook. I kind of would keep friends and family up to date, and I haven't posted anything for a really long time. So he just reached out, said, how's he doing? How's the family doing? So I responded, and we kind of struck up this friendship.
No, Diane.
No. Listen,
All right.
does not go where you think it's going. That's my dilemma. But it was just nice.
It was
awesome.
Awesome.
Nice to have somebody talk to me on that level. It was nice to have somebody check in at night saying, how are you doing? He's divorced, so he's single, but I'm married. And I promise you it has not gone anywhere. You know what I mean? It just,
listen to me. You're not crazy. You're not a bad person.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's my question.
Okay.
It's kind of a doozy.
There's no
I am
there's no doozies on the show. Go for it.
I am considering getting a divorce
Okay.
so that I can move on with my life.
Okay.
Nothing with my relationship with my husband would change. One thing I didn't say about his, kind of his personality is he's very apathetic. He doesn't care about anything. I walk in, he smiles at me. I could tell him his kids took his truck and wrecked it or whatever. He wouldn't care. He isn't capable of caring about anything. So we go see him. It's mostly for us. He doesn't remember. He doesn't really care. And just this little encounter I've had with this man
It made you feel alive again.
Really
made you feel alive again.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, would it be so bad if I divorced him just for the sake of getting my feet out of the concrete I feel like I'm stuck in and start to imagine a future? Because for so long we thought he's going to pass any day, any day, any day, any day. And we've lived thinking he's going to pass. And now I'm thinking he could live another 10 or 20 years. Like, his heart and lungs are pretty dang good. His brain's pretty shot, but he could live a long time like this. And what does that mean for me and my kids?
It sounds like in all of the, if I was to distill down, well, let me say this. I want to be careful how I do this because I don't want anyone listening to this to think this is the right path for somebody who's having this conversation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I am collapsing what would be a long time of you and I getting to know each other and hanging out and me getting to hear all the stories and developing a relationship with you before I started asking you these questions. Okay. You know more than anybody else listening how awful and thoughtless and dumb and just stitched into pillows the sayings you get lobbed at you all the time, right? You've got that for 5 years, okay?
Right.
So I don't want to contribute to that. But at the same time, for the sake of this, I've got to expedite a lot of this, okay? So this is just you and me, same side of the booth, just figuring this out, okay? Actually, I'm not really the same side of the booth kind of guy. So we're looking across from the booth at each other. It sounds like through all of your prayers, the chief prayer over all has been, I want this to be exactly as I want it. I want the outcome of this to be exactly what I want it to be. And wrestling with praying for, and I've done this, praying for someone that I love to go ahead and pass, and then they don't. And then I have the guilt that I prayed for them to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't breathe. And then I go through these like, well, I guess they're here to teach me something, as though that's their job, right? It never stops.
Yeah.
It never stops.
Right.
Right.
Something I'm supposed to get out of this. There's still something I'm supposed to learn.
That's right. I guess you said it best earlier. There's a coming to terms with the fact that all the things you've prayed for the last 5 years, many of them have come true. They just haven't come true in the ways that you wanted them to.
Yeah.
And the great challenge of just being alive is dealing with that gap of what we wanted versus what we get. What I thought this would look like versus reality. And that's the worst. That's grief, right? That's the black hole. And so going back to what you said, this is for you. I would suggest you're not crazy. I can't imagine how alive you must feel to have somebody check in on you, who also might be a little bit cute.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot imagine how lonely it is not being intimate with somebody when they're right there. All of it. But just from the few minutes I've heard you on the phone, I'm trying to project out a year from now. Would you be able to breathe? This isn't a judgment question at all. This is a curious question. This is me just asking Diane.
If I were to divorce him, would I be able to breathe? Is that what you're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
I think I would. I don't foresee that me getting a divorce would change anything with him. I would
Has nothing to do with him. Has nothing to do with him. It has to do with you saying for sickness and in health.
Right.
I know he won't know up from down, day one from day 7. He won't know. You will. And so as terms of your covenant, like this idea, and again, I use that word intentionally, and I'm not even using it in a religious context. I'm just saying there's so few forevers anymore in our culture. If you say, no, I'm in forever, and then I don't have to look Diane in the mirror. You do. So if it's like, yeah, no, I've done my duty, and if my husband was alive today, nobody knows him like me. It's been 30 years together. He would be saying, what are you doing? Go hook up with one of my greatest friends. Yes, at least you'd be taken care of. Or if you say, I'm going to figure out how to feel alive and be alive inside of the parameters life, inside of this deck of cards, this hand of cards that life has dealt me. Because I said forever. I guess at the end of the day, I can't let you off the hook either way.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I would do, but I don't think that's helpful here. And I can also tell you, telling you what I would do right now on this side of this thing actually happening probably isn't even true.
Yeah, this is not something in fact, people started asking me early on, would you have you thought about divorcing him? And I just was like, absolutely not. Like, that is a ridiculous idea. And it's just been long enough. I know if the roles were reversed, knowing what I know now, I would tell him, go find somebody. Go find somebody to be with and be happy with. And one thing, I am a religious person. I've talked a lot about prayer and faith. And my religion, my husband and I were married in our temple. And we were married for what we call time and all eternity. And so one thing I know is if I were divorced from him, it would separate us for this life. But I know and fully intend on living with him in the next life forever. And I know that that's something in my religion that some man would be very cautious to even date me, knowing that I have been sealed to my husband, because that would mean that whatever marriage we have here would not extend beyond this life, if that makes sense. Just, kind of as a frame of reference for where I am at.
Sure. I mean, I don't have any reference point for your religious background, but I would say, based on what you just said, if this is a cosmic linkage, if this is a forever together, what's the rush? If you truly believe that.
And I do. And I know everything is going to work out. I know God's got a plan. And in the end, it's going to be
But you don't like his
great.
plan.
I don't like it. I can't help but think with 30 more years in me, in this life, would it, is this idea of finding somebody to have some companionship with for the next 20, 30 years. I know where I can tell what you're thinking, and I'm fighting it. Can you tell that?
Yeah, you don't know what I'm thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking how hard this is.
And ultimately, my biggest, I've got an 8-year-old, like I said. My next oldest is 16, and I've got older kids out of the house, and he is my biggest concern at this point, is this 8-year-old that I have still at home. And in no way would I ever do anything that would, make life harder for him or jeopardize my relationship with him, for sure.
Well, this, again, not a judgment question, but just a question, curiosity question.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be showing that 8-year-old that there is a boundary to forever? There comes a day when mom moves on. What do you think?
I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. I guess I'm not gonna give you the satisfaction of telling you what I really think.
Just give me permission, John.
No chance.
Just tell me what I want to hear. Nobody ever does.
Listen, no, I hear a woman who deeply loves her husband.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a woman who has not yet opened her hands up to the fact that you can't control any of this. And every step of the way, you're continuing to control, continue to try to control, and continue to try to control, even to the point that you got everybody together to plan for the end, that you don't get to decide. And so there's no possible way I'm going to sit in judgment of you on any decision that you make. I do believe that you get to choose to feel alive and to be alive in whatever context you find. I also believe that for sickness and in health and covenant, I don't know, still means something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of what my life would be like dating Diane, who's like, no, I still love this guy. I'm linked cosmically forever to this guy. I'm still going to go take care of him every week. I just needed some cover so you and I could hook up. Like, there are certainly men that will take you up on that.
I've talked to a couple friends, and that's what I said. Like, say I go ahead and do this. Like, what guy in his right mind?
Oh, there'll be a line of them, Diane. There's a bunch of just shady people out there. No, they'll be there. They'll be there. They'll be there, no question. But it all comes back to you. It comes back to you. And just talking to you, like you're exhausted. And every plan you've made along the way for the last 5 years has not worked out as you wanted it to. And so your next option to try to control what happens next is what it sounds like to me to violate one of your core tenets, one of your core beliefs religiously, one of your core beliefs in love, because you're real lonely and you're really exhausted. But again, it looks like yet another attempt to control what happens next because you've been out of control for 5 years. And I would suggest before you go file for divorce, you spend some time with open hands and fully leaning into, probably with your kids too. I don't control any of the outcomes now. And I'm going to stop racing and seeking to try to find another outcome that I can control. And God Almighty, yes, it feels good when people reach out. That feels good when you've been married and you're happily married. It feels good when somebody reaches out and tells you they miss you or they like you or checking in on you. I would tell you to take a break. Take a break from visiting for a bit. Take a break from the divorce conversation for a bit. Take a break from talking to this guy for a bit. And maybe your prayer switches from, okay, what about this? Okay, what about this? Okay, what about this? And instead your prayer switches to, I've got no control and I've got no power. Please lead me into what comes next. And again, I don't know your faith tradition. I don't know your religious tradition. I know you've been trying to control stuff for a long, long time. So sorry, I can't give you my truest, deepest thoughts on this one. What I can tell you is unhook all the brakes and just sit for a minute. Maybe talk to your kids. Maybe get some wisdom from your friends. But seek to be alive outside of some new romantic relationship for just a minute. Seek to be at peace. Seek to open your hands and say, okay, I control nothing. Get me through tomorrow. And really dig in on the promises that you made for forever. Because you're the one that made them. And if you make this other choice, you're going to be the one that breaks them. And Diane's going to have to live with Diane. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your bravery. You're awesome. Call anytime.